All right, folks, this is the 2022 Lenovo Legion Slim 7 Gen 7. It's a 16-inch, in this case, AMD-based gaming laptop. This is one of those handful of AMD Advantage laptops. Now, you can also get this with an Intel CPU and an NVIDIA GPU. It goes up to a 3070 Ti. One of the reasons that I really love this particular spec with the AMD Advantage is that it just has more efficiency. So the GPU and the CPU require less power than the Intel and NVIDIA variants, and you still get really good performance. I was playing the new Spiderman game on PC. I mean, it's new to PC, but it's been around for a few years otherwise. And I was getting over 70 frames per second, up to 80 in fact, at max resolution, which is 2560 by 1600 with everything maxed out and of course no FSR enabled. So it ran very, very well. I also played Evil West, which is a brand new game at about 50 to 65 frames per second, plus some like odd dips down to 35-ish frames per second. Also maxed out at epic settings with no FSR enabled. So to gain that kind of performance on something this thin and light is really unusual. I mean, you can certainly get really good performance out of other Lenovo machines like the Legion 5 or Legion 7 if you go to the max GPU and you have a lower resolution display. But to get something so compact in this slim model is really special. And so that's why I'm calling this the laptop of the year. I've showcased and reviewed about 30 laptops this year, most of which have been from Lenovo. But of course, I have experience with Razer's laptops and MSI and others if you've been following this channel for the last several years. So I've got a pretty good idea of what else is out there. And from what I've been able to get into the shop, this is the laptop of the year. So a little caveat or an asterisk on that award, but I love this thing. And right now I use a 14-inch MacBook Pro for my work machine, and then I have a Legion 5i Pro from last year. It's a 5 Pro, my bad. It's the AMD one from last year, the 3070, that I also love because it's just like gaming laptop. It's sick. But if I had to consolidate everything into one machine, right? So one laptop for work and for gaming, this is the one I would pick up because this machine is so thin and light that it really makes it easy, I think, to travel with. So let me give you some idea of what's going on here. So on the right-hand side, really cool ventilation with a full-size SD card reader. You have a hardware switch so you can turn off the camera if you wanted to, and a headphone jack. And look at this design. It doesn't come through as well in this video as it would in person, but this design where the display is sort of recessed into the top of the chassis and it's separated with this nice shiny aluminum, it has this industrial look like it just came out of the shop that I think is awesome. Okay, now on the back, one of the hallmarks of the Legion series the last few years is they've been putting the majority of the I/O in the back, and that's really more prevalent in like the Legion 7, where basically all of the I/O is in the back except for a couple of USBs on the left and right. A little less so here where it's a little more spread out, but it still looks really good and it's more functional this way. And something else Legion did is they've now pushed that I/O into the back a little bit more. So if you were to take something like a USB dongle for your mouse and put it in here, it's close to flush with these vents, which doesn't have much of a practical purpose, but it just looks really cool. Instead of having a USB stick out, it's more flush or in line with what you have here. But you do get HDMI, 2 more USB-A ports, and then this is Lenovo's proprietary power plug. It ships with a 230 watt power adapter, which you'll need in this particular model because this has the AMD 6800S, which is kind of comparable to a 3070 or 3080 Ti. Sort of depends on if you're Quad HD or 1080p, if you're using ray tracing, which doesn't do very well with AMD's GPUs right now. But anyhow, we'll talk about performance again in a bit. Ventilation, 2 USB-C ports, and in the front, my very favorite thing that Lenovo does with their high-end machines, they printed Legion right here on the lip. I think that's great. Okay, now on the hood, you may notice that the power and I/O are labeled, which is super helpful. You can disable this with a hardware function. It's like function P, I think it is, turns off that lighting. You can also use function R and function L to do some things. So function R is going to change the refresh rate from 165 to 60. I'll show you how that works. All right. Just like that, we're down to 60 hertz. I do it again, we're at 165 hertz. Pretty awesome. Function Q is your power setting. So I just put it into quiet mode or cool mode. So we shouldn't be hearing the fans. And then I can do it again and put it into regular mode, which makes the power button light up as white. And then if this were plugged in and I hit it again, it would turn red and go into like an overpowered turbo mode, which you're welcome to do if you'd like, if you're wearing some nice noise canceling headphones while you play your games. But otherwise, I keep it mostly in the white mode, even when it's plugged in. And then sometimes when I'm like on the couch and I don't need a lot of power and just browsing the web, I'll put it in the chill mode and use it that way. Okay, so the display is 2560 by 1600. As you saw, it goes up to 165 hertz, and it's a really good display. It has a very low refresh rate on the from your gaming, so you don't get things like ghosting, for example. And games look amazing on it. I mentioned Spider-Man earlier, so I've mostly been playing Spider-Man on my deck. I pretty much use my deck for all my PC gaming now. I shouldn't say pretty much. I absolutely use my deck 100% now for PC gaming. I love the accessibility of that device. And then to see Marvel's Spider-Man here on the bigger screen, the 16-inch display, man, it was super nice, super sharp. Colors were popping. It was awesome. And maybe in the future we'll start to see some OLED-based laptops from Lenovo with high refresh and stuff like that and low latency. But for now, this is what you get, and it's awesome. I think you'll really like it. Okay, speakers are bottom facing, so they don't sound, they sound a little washed out, but they're gonna do you just fine, I think. It's not the reason to not buy this machine, right? So if you're looking for a flaw, there is one, but that doesn't mean you should just turn your back on this, especially if you need something or want something that's a little bit thinner and lighter than like the Legion 7 series or the 5 Pro, which I love. I'm a big fan of the 5 Pro, but yeah. Okay, backlighting is one. You can't really see this super well, but there's only one zone. So you don't have per key RGB or zone lighting like you do on some of the other Legion machines. And you can either turn it on or off, and there's a couple of different stages, but that's all there is to it. So it's pretty basic, which is surprising considering that this is part of the 7 series, right? It's the Slim 7 or there's a Slim 7i. And usually with Lenovo, when you're in the 7s, right, that's more of the upper echelon. It can be a bit confusing because there's also the Pro, but the Pro is reserved for the 5. But anyhow, I would have thought that you could get, per key RGB. But I'm not a per key RGB guy, so I don't really care. Okay, you may have noticed that when I logged in, I was able to do so with my finger. So this has Windows Hello biometrics, but no Windows Hello facial recognition. And that's also somewhat surprising because it is a 7 series. So I thought we'd have that. But being the Slim, it's like the little brother or little sister of the Legion 7, which is like beast mode, 5.5, 6 pounds, thicker, RGBs on the back and stuff like that. That's a beast of a machine. It's awesome. But yeah, this didn't carry over the infrared on the camera for Windows Hello facial recognition. Okay, back to the keyboard for a moment. So everyone knows that Lenovo has awesome keyboards. This is no exception. This is an amazing keyboard. It's very easy to get used to. And I know that not everybody likes to have a dedicated number pad, but I like that Lenovo did this, and here's precisely why. In the outset of this video, I mentioned that if I had to consolidate my work machine and my gaming machine into one, it would be this. And I wouldn't be able to do that if it didn't have a dedicated number pad. So I'm not much of an Excel user, but I think Excel is the preeminent showcase for having a number pad. So most people, I reckon, will use their laptop for work more than they will for gaming, unless they're seeking a dedicated gaming machine, in which case they don't want the number pad, right? Because people aren't using this for their PC games. Maybe MMOs, I don't really know much about MMOs, but MMO mice have a lot of buttons, so maybe people want a lot of buttons and they want it on the right-hand side for MMO. But for most games, you don't need it, of course, especially if you're a gamepad user. But here we are, 16-inch, they had the room, they did it. Now, you could argue that if they had gone with a traditional, take the number pad out, shift the keyboard in the middle, put the speakers on the right and the left, bam, right? We get better speakers in absence of the number pad, or at least forward-facing speakers. But I don't know if they then could have kept the form factor so thin, right? Because speakers, they take up space and crap. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an engineer, but I do love this machine, and I'm so glad there's a number pad on it. You may disagree, and that's totally cool. Good for you. That's awesome. Okay, this machine starts at $1,250 or so. If you spec it out on Lenovo's website, you can get some good deals, you get some sales, and you could maybe get this thing super well spec'd for about $1,250 or $1,300. There aren't that many configurations on the AMD Advantage side, but having the option for the 6700S, I think is probably the way to go, because you can then get this machine at like $1,500, and you only lose like maybe 5 to 15% of the performance you get with this 6800S, but there'd be way less noise. Now with this 6800S, it is loud when it's firing and going crazy, but it doesn't get hot, which is really important. So if you were to go that route with the 6800S and the Ryzen 9 series versus the 7 series, 32 gigs of RAM instead of 16, you're closer to $2,000, but not quite there. This is available at Best Buy. So if you don't feel comfortable buying from Lenovo's website, you can go to Best Buy and you can pick it up. You could probably find it on sale around the holidays. You could probably find it open box for even a little bit less. I would argue that if you can get this machine with a Ryzen 9 and a 6800S for, say, $1,700, that's a very good deal. And even if you got it for less, that'd be just like the best deal ever. I think this is an awesome machine, hence the whole game of the year notion, or sorry, laptop of the year notion. And I'm just very impressed with what Lenovo have put together in total here. And you know what? Let me grab my Legion 5 Pro. Okay, so this is the Legion 5 Pro from last year. This year's model, if you go back to my videos, Lenovo did not maintain the exact same aesthetic here. So this is a gaming laptop, right? It's just got the big Lenovo Y, it lights up. It's freaking beast, dude. It's baller, and I love it. It's one of my favorite machines of all time. I just think it looks super cool, and even holding it right now, I kind of want to play it. but anyhow, I gotta focus on the Legion Slim. So when you compare these machines, like look at the difference in thickness. Look at that. I mean, the Legion 5 Pro is so much thicker, and it does have more I/O. Here we go. It has more I/O, right? There's more room for that, which is cool. But it is a function of what you're looking for. This also has some plastic components, and the keyboard does have per key RGB, and you just get way more out of this. But you also then get more weight. It's a heavier machine, but it is awesome. I kind of want to fire it up right now. But again, if you're looking for a single machine that's going to do your work and your gaming, and you're going to feel like you're driving something premium that should last you a long time, this is the one to go with. And of all the laptops I've tested this year, like look at the Razer Blades. Like this is basically the same form factor as the Razer Blade, but a totally different aesthetic, right? Like with the way the display sits on top of the wider chassis and the recession here and the port layout. This is a different looking machine, but they're basically the same in terms of form factor, right? They'll slip into a bag and feel about the same. But the Razer Blade still has a 16:9 aspect ratio, which is fantastic for games, right? But then when it comes to work, which you're gonna probably be doing way more than gaming, it's like, dude, you want a 16:10, right? Legion has that. And even though this is picking up a lot of fingerprints, this is not as fingerprinty as the Razer Blade. So, and not to pick on Razer, I mean, like MSI, they've got some laptops with 16:9, some with 16:10, but you try to put together the performance to price ratio like Legion gives you, and it's just not going to happen. So, dude, I'm telling you, whether you prefer the Intel NVIDIA variant or this all AMD Advantage Ryzen edition, I think the Legion Slim 7 Gen 7 16-inch, this is the laptop of the year. So if you're a parent looking to get a laptop for your kid, or you're an adult and you're looking to get one laptop for everything that's gonna last you a few years, Slim 7, man. I think this is awesome. And I'm excited to see where Legion goes from here. I don't think they have much they can do inside to make this any better, other than like maybe work on that display to make it OLED, which is just bound to happen for everybody, or mini LED. So that's a wrap. Thanks everybody for watching this one, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.